The first man wearing a deputy's uniform had my foreman on his knees beside the equipment shed when I drove through the south gate. For half a second I thought I had entered the wrong property. Then I saw my barn, my tractors, my cattle pressed against the far fence, and 6 armed men wearing tan uniforms with silver badges standing across the farm my family had owned for 73 years. 2 black SUVs blocked the driveway. A white tow truck was hooked to my Ford F-350, and beside it stood Vanessa Whitmore, president of the Silver Creek Estates HOA, holding a clipboard like she was conducting an inventory. I slammed my county-issued Tahoe into park. One of the uniformed men raised his hand. "Sir, stay in the vehicle." I stared through the windshield. My foreman, Miguel Alvarez, looked up at me. His lip was bleeding. A second farmhand had his hands zip-tied behind his back. That was when something inside me went cold. I stepped out. The man closest to me moved his hand toward his holster. I said, "Stay in the vehicle." "No," I answered. Vanessa turned. For the first time that morning, she smiled. "Well, Sheriff Cole finally decided to show up." She said it sarcastically, like she thought Sheriff was some nickname. That told me everything. "My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 52 years old, and for the last 11 years, I've been the elected sheriff of Mason County, Colorado. The men standing on my property were not my deputies. I knew every badge number in my department. I knew every patrol vehicle. I knew every man and woman authorized to wear our uniform. These men belonged to none of them. The fake deputy stepped closer. "This property is under lawful seizure pending transfer to Silver Creek Estates." "Who authorized that?" He pulled a folded document from his vest. "Court order." I took it from him. At the top was the name of Mason County District Court. At the bottom was a judge's signature. Between them was a description of my property, except the case number belonged to an abandoned commercial parcel 20 miles east. I knew because my office had served the actual order 3 weeks earlier. Vanessa walked toward me in expensive boots that were already sinking into the mud. "You were warned repeatedly, Nathan. Your farm violates community development standards, and you refused every reasonable opportunity to cooperate. My farm isn't inside your HOA. It affects our property values. That doesn't make it yours." Her smile disappeared. "You're finished fighting this." Behind her, another fake deputy began photographing my machinery. A contractor sprayed orange paint across one of my fence posts. "Chutzonbers." I looked at Miguel. "Did they hurt you?" The fake deputy beside him answered. He resisted lawful detention. Miguel spat blood into the dirt. I asked to see his badge number. The man grabbed Miguel's shoulder. I took one step forward. "Take your hand off him." "Sheriff or not," Vanessa snapped, "you have no authority to interfere with a court-ordered eviction." I looked directly at her. "You really believe that?" She hesitated. Then I reached into my jacket. Every fake deputy stiffened. I slowly pulled out a folded document. Not the forged eviction order, a real arrest warrant. Signed at 6:42 that morning. Vanessa's name was printed across the first page. Her eyes dropped to it. The color vanished from her face. "What is that?" I unfolded it. "Vanessa Whitmore. I've spent the last 6 weeks finding out exactly who you hired, who altered that court order, and who paid them." Nobody moved. I looked at the men wearing stolen authority on my land, then back at her. "And this morning you brought every suspect directly to me. 6 weeks earlier, none of this seemed possible. Back then, my biggest concern was whether the late summer heat would ruin part of the alfalfa crop. My name is Nathan Cole. I was 52, serving my 11th year as sheriff of Mason County, Colorado, and living on the same farm where I had spent most of my childhood. The property sat just outside the town of Red Hollow. 240 acres of pasture, hayfields, irrigation channels, and old cottonwoods that followed the creek along the western boundary. My grandfather bought the first 80 acres in 1953. My father expanded it. I bought the remaining parcels after he died. The farmhouse itself wasn't impressive. White siding, a deep front porch, a tin roof that popped loudly when summer temperatures dropped after sunset. But every room carried a memory. My mother canned peaches in the kitchen. My father taught me how to repair a saddle in the mudroom. And when my wife, Laura, was still alive, we used to sit on the porch after dinner and watch thunderstorms roll down from the mountains. I could have sold the place years ago. I never seriously considered it. Being sheriff made me cautious by nature. I trusted records more than rumors, and patterns more than coincidence. That was why I noticed the first problem almost immediately. Silver Creek Estates had been built along my northern fence line 4 years earlier. At first, the relationship was peaceful. Then Vanessa Whitmore became HOA president. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. It accused me of maintaining visually incompatible agricultural equipment near the development. I actually laughed. The tractor they were complaining about was sitting nearly half a mile from the nearest HOA house. I mailed the notice back with a short response. Private agricultural property. Not subject to HOA covenants. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. Then another. Fence appearance. Livestock odor. Early morning machinery noise. Each complaint became slightly more aggressive. Then one afternoon, I found Vanessa standing outside my north pasture, taking photographs through the fence. I stopped my truck beside her. "Can I help you?" She lowered her phone. "We're documenting ongoing violations." "Violations of what?" "Community standards." "This isn't your community." Her expression barely changed. "That boundary is becoming less important than you think." I watched her walk back toward the subdivision. At the time, I assumed she was bluffing. 3 days later, Miguel found survey stakes driven 20 yards inside my property line, and attached to one of them was a bright orange ribbon printed with 2 words, "Future Access." The survey stakes disappeared that afternoon. I pulled all 4 of them myself, photographed their exact locations first, and placed them in the equipment shed. Then I started keeping a record. 1. The survey stakes. 2. The HOA letters. 3. Vanessa photographing my property. 4. The orange Future Access ribbon. 25 years in law enforcement had taught me something simple. One strange incident might mean nothing. 4 connected incidents meant somebody had a plan. I discovered part of that plan the following Monday. At 8:17 in the morning, Vanessa drove onto my property in a black Mercedes SUV. Behind her came a pickup carrying 2 men in reflective survey vests. Miguel called me from the south field. "Nathan, she's back. I see her." Vanessa parked beside the barn and stepped out carrying a leather folder. "You removed authorized survey markers. They were on private property. They were marking a proposed emergency access corridor." "Proposed by whom?" "Silver Creek Estates." I stared at her. "You don't get to propose roads across my farm." She opened the folder and handed me a map. A red line ran directly across my north pasture, followed the irrigation road, and connected Silver Creek Estates to County Route 18. That would cut almost 9 miles from the subdivision's drive into Red Hollow. "You want a shortcut? We need secondary emergency access. Then buy land from someone willing to sell it." Her jaw tightened. "We've already established access rights." That became number 5. I folded the map. "Show me the easement. You'll receive the appropriate documentation." "No, you just told me you have access rights." "Show me." One surveyor looked toward Vanessa. She ignored him. "You're making this unnecessarily hostile, Sheriff." "Calling me Sheriff doesn't make trespassing legal." Her eyes hardened. Then she stepped closer. "Maybe you should separate your personal interests from your public position." There it was, a threat wrapped in professional language. Number 6. 2 days later, a complaint was filed with the county alleging that I was using Sheriff's Department resources to intimidate HOA residents. It was anonymous. By Friday, local blogger Derek Mills was calling my farm dispute a potential abuse of power scandal. Number 7. Then things became stranger. At 6:40 one Saturday morning, Miguel called from the barn. "There are deputies at the north gate." I was pouring coffee. "Mine?" "I don't think so." I drove over. 2 men stood beside an unmarked grey SUV. Tan shirts, duty belts, silver star-shaped badges. One stepped toward my truck. "Mr. Cole?" "Sheriff Cole." He paused. "We're here concerning an access enforcement matter." "What agency?" "Mason County Civil Enforcement." No such agency existed. Number 8. "Badge number?" His eyes narrowed. "That information isn't relevant. It becomes very relevant when you're standing on my property, dressed like a deputy." The second man moved closer. "We're not here to argue." "Then identify yourselves." Neither did. Instead, the first man handed me a document titled Notice of Pending Property Enforcement. The county seal at the top looked legitimate. Almost. I studied it for 3 seconds. The eagle faced the wrong direction. "Who gave you this?" "You'll need to speak with the HOA. "Vanessa Whitmore." Neither answered. That was number 9. I pulled out my phone. "Dispatch, this is Cole. Send a marked unit to my north gate." Both men immediately looked at each other. The first one stepped backward. "We'll return with proper authorization." "You're not leaving yet." But they were already moving toward their SUV. I photographed the license plate as they drove away. The plate came back registered to Front Range Protective Services, a private security company 90 miles away. That became number 10, and number 11 arrived that evening. Someone slid an envelope beneath my front door. Inside was a photocopy of what appeared to be a district court filing. Across the top were the words, "Emergency petition for possession and removal of occupant." The occupant was me. The petitioner was Silver Creek Estates HOA, but halfway down the second page, I noticed something that made me stop breathing for a second. The legal description of my farm had been pasted over another property description, poorly. I held the page beneath my desk lamp. Under the altered text, faintly visible through the paper, were 3 words: Hawthorne Commercial Storage. I knew that name. My department had served a legitimate seizure order there less than a month earlier. I picked up my phone and called County Attorney Rachel Bennett. She answered on the 4th ring. "Nathan? Rachel, I need you to check a court filing." "What kind?" I stared at the forged document. "The kind that somebody may have altered to steal 240 acres. There was silence. Then Rachel's voice changed completely. "Don't call Vanessa. Don't confront anyone." "Why?" "Because if this is what I think it is, you're not dealing with an HOA dispute anymore." I looked through my office window toward the dark fields. "What am I dealing with?" Rachel answered quietly. "A conspiracy." Rachel Bennett was sitting in my office by 7:15 the next morning. She had spent 16 years as a county prosecutor before moving into private practice, and she had the habit of reading suspicious documents without saying a word until she found exactly what bothered her. The fake petition sat between us. She examined the first page, then the second, then held it toward the window. Finally, she looked at me. "Start numbering." I opened my notebook. Rachel tapped the case number. "Number 12. This case number is real. That's what worries me. It should." She opened her laptop and accessed the public court docket. The number belonged to the Hawthorne Commercial Storage case, the same property my deputies had seized 3 weeks earlier. Rachel turned the screen toward me. "Look at the original." I compared it with Vanessa's document. Same case number, same judge, same filing date, but completely different property. "Someone copied a real court order," I said, "and modified it." Number 13. Rachel called the district court clerk while I contacted Lieutenant Aaron Briggs, the one person in my department I trusted to investigate without creating rumors. By 9:30, we had another problem. There was no emergency petition involving my farm anywhere in the court system. No hearing, no judgment, no eviction, nothing. Number 14. Then Aaron walked into my office, carrying a thin folder. "Front Range Protective Services." "What about them?" "They're real." Rachel looked up. Aaron dropped the folder onto my desk. "But they aren't licensed to perform civil enforcement." Number 15. The 2 men who had visited my farm were employees named Cody Vance and Eric Dalton. Neither had ever been a sworn law enforcement officer, yet security footage from my north gate clearly showed both wearing badges and duty belts. Rachel watched the recording twice. "Save copies somewhere outside your department." "Already done." She gave me a small approving nod. Then Aaron leaned against my desk. "There's more." Of course there was. He placed a photograph in front of me. It showed Vanessa leaving the Front Range Protective Services office 11 days earlier. Time-stamped security footage from a neighboring business confirmed she had spent 47 minutes inside. Number 16. That afternoon, I met County Surveyor Thomas Reed at my northern boundary. Thomas had worked in Mason County for 31 years. He drove an iron pin locator into the soil, checked the original plat, then pointed towards Silver Creek. "Your boundary hasn't moved an inch." "What about an access easement?" "There isn't one." Number 17. "No historical right-of-way?" "No." "Emergency corridor." Thomas actually laughed. "Nathan, somebody invented that." We followed the proposed route until we reached the subdivision fence. That was where Thomas stopped. What the hell? A fresh metal marker had been driven into the ground. It carried an official-looking county survey cap. Thomas crouched beside it. "I didn't install this." "Could another county surveyor?" He looked at me. "Not legally." Number 18. We photographed everything. But the real breakthrough came 2 nights later. Miguel remembered that one of our trail cameras faced the service road near the disputed boundary. I pulled the memory card. At 1:13 a.m., 3 weeks earlier, Vanessa's Mercedes appeared. Another vehicle followed. A pickup. 2 men got out. One was Cody Vance. The other carried surveying equipment. The footage showed them removing an old boundary marker, measuring toward my property, then installing the fake county marker. Rachel watched the video beside me. "Now we have them physically altering evidence." I wrote, "Number 19. Then she froze the footage. "Back up." I did. Again. A man had stepped briefly into the headlights beside Vanessa. I recognized him immediately. "Judge Palmer's clerk." Rachel stared at me. "No, zoom in." I enlarged the frame. It was Daniel Cross, a deputy clerk with access to district court records. Rachel slowly sat back. If Cross supplied the original order, that explains how Vanessa got a document that hadn't been publicly scanned yet. That became number 20. But Rachel wasn't looking at Cross anymore. She was staring at Vanessa's Mercedes. "Can you enhance the passenger window?" I enlarged it. A white envelope was visible on the dashboard. Printed across the front was the logo of a development company. Western Crest Development. Rachel immediately searched the company name. A land use proposal appeared. Silver Creek Estates, Phase 2. 412 new homes, and the proposed entrance road ran directly across my farm. Then I saw the submission date. The development application had been filed 8 months before Vanessa ever sent me the first HOA complaint. I stared at the screen. This was never about my tractor. Rachel shook her head. No, I looked at the proposed road cutting through my land. They needed my property before the project could be approved. Rachel leaned closer to the screen. And Nathan, she pointed at the ownership disclosure. One of Western Crest Development's listed investors was hidden behind an LLC. Rachel pulled the state registration. The managing member appeared. Vanessa Whitmore. I stopped writing. Because suddenly, every threat made sense. Vanessa wasn't protecting her neighborhood. She was trying to steal the land that would make her rich. Finding Vanessa's name behind Western Crest changed the investigation. It also made everything more dangerous. Rachel closed the corporate filing and looked at me. "From this point forward, you cannot investigate her personally." "I know. You're the victim and the sheriff. Her attorney will attack every piece of evidence if you blur those roles." So I stepped away. The criminal investigation went through Lieutenant Aaron Briggs and the district attorney's office. I remained a witness. 3 days later, Aaron walked into my office. "Ready for number 21? He placed bank records on my desk. Western Crest had transferred $28,500 to Front Range Protective Services. The payment description read, "Special Property Compliance Detail." Number 21. Another $7,800 had gone to an LLC controlled by Daniel Cross. Number 22. Then Cross made a mistake. Faced with a subpoena and the possibility of losing everything, he agreed to an interview. He admitted downloading the Hawthorne seizure order from the court's internal system and emailing it to Vanessa. But his next statement was worse. She told me her attorney would handle the modifications. Aaron leaned forward. "What modifications?" Cross swallowed. "The property description." Number 23. The smoking gun arrived 48 hours later. Investigators recovered deleted emails from Vanessa's HOA account. One was sent to Cody Vance. "Wear county-style uniforms. Residents comply faster when they believe law enforcement is present." Another went to Western Crest. "Once coal is removed, access construction can begin immediately." And then there was the email Rachel read twice before sliding it toward me. Vanessa had written, "The sheriff being the owner complicates things, but it may also help. If he reacts aggressively, we frame it as abuse of office." I stared at those words. Number 24. They had planned my reaction. Every complaint, every camera, every fake deputy. They wanted me angry. They wanted footage of the sheriff threatening HOA representatives over his own property. Rachel folded her arms. "Now you understand why I kept telling you not to confront her." I nodded. She needed me to become the villain. Exactly 1 day after the search warrants were approved, Vanessa launched her final attack. At 6:12 the next morning, Miguel called. "Nathan, we've got vehicles coming through the south gate." "How many?" 6, maybe 7. Then I heard shouting. The call disconnected. I was already moving. Aaron intercepted me outside the sheriff's office. "We have Vanessa's arrest warrant." He handed it over. "Fraud, conspiracy, criminal impersonation, forgery, attempted unlawful dispossession." Other warrants were being prepared for Cross and the security personnel. "We need to execute this carefully," Aaron said. Then dispatch called. "Sheriff, multiple reports of armed individuals at your farm." I looked at Aaron. Vanessa had moved first. We drove separately. When I reached the property, the scene looked like an eviction operation. 2 black SUVs blocked my driveway. A tow truck was attached to my F-350. Contractors were placing orange markings on equipment, and Miguel was on his knees with blood on his mouth. I stepped from my Tahoe. "Sir, stay in the vehicle," one fake deputy ordered. Then Vanessa saw me. Well, Sheriff Cole finally decided to show up. I let her talk. She claimed the property was being seized. She claimed I had exhausted my appeals. She even warned me that interfering with a lawful eviction could constitute obstruction. Then she made the mistake that ended everything. She pointed toward the forged order. "You have no authority to interfere." I pulled the real warrant from my jacket. Her face changed. "What is that?" Your arrest warrant. The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then Cody Vance reached toward his holster. Hands away from the weapon, I shouted. Real patrol units exploded through the gate behind me. Sirens. Red and blue lights. Doors opening. My deputies took positions. Cody froze. Aaron stepped forward. Mason County Sheriff's Office. Everyone in security uniforms. Hands where we can see them. Vanessa backed toward her Mercedes. You can't arrest me. This is retaliation. No, Rachel said from behind one of the arriving vehicles. Vanessa turned. Rachel held up a thick evidence folder. This is documentation. Vanessa looked around. Her fake deputies were being disarmed. Miguel's restraints were cut. Contractors stepped away from their equipment. Aaron approached Vanessa with handcuffs. She stared at me. You think this is over? I looked at the forged order lying in the mud. No, because I knew what came next. Court. And this time, Vanessa wouldn't be controlling the story. 4 months later, Vanessa Whitmore walked into the Mason County Courthouse wearing a navy suit instead of handcuffs. Her attorney, Charles Brennan, stayed close beside her. The criminal case had expanded. Vanessa faced charges of conspiracy, forgery, criminal impersonation, attempted unlawful dispossession, and solicitation connected to the fake deputies. Cody Vance and Eric Dalton had taken plea agreements. Daniel Cross had agreed to testify. Because I was both sheriff and victim, the state had transferred prosecution authority to Special Prosecutor Emily Carter from the neighboring judicial district. That mattered. Vanessa could no longer claim my department controlled the case. The courtroom was packed. Silver Creek homeowners filled 2 rows. Reporters occupied the back. I sat beside Rachel behind the prosecution table, waiting to testify. Emily stood. Your Honor, the state will show that this was not an HOA misunderstanding. She placed the forged seizure order onto the evidence monitor. This was a coordinated attempt to manufacture government authority for private financial gain. Brennan immediately stood. Objection to characterization. Judge Rebecca Holloway barely looked up. Overruled. Counsel may proceed. Emily started with the documents. 1. The authentic Hawthorne commercial storage order. 2. The altered version naming my farm. Side by side, the fraud was obvious. Same case number, same judge's signature, different property description. Then Daniel Cross took the stand. Emily approached him. Did Vanessa Whitmore ask you to obtain the Hawthorne order? Yes. Why? She said she needed a template. For what? Cross stared toward Vanessa. Her face remained motionless. A property enforcement action. And did you receive money afterward? Yes. How much? $7,800. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Brennan attacked him on cross-examination. You accepted a plea agreement, correct? Yes. So blaming Ms. Whitmore benefits you? Cross swallowed. I'm telling you what happened. Then came Cody Vance. Emily displayed Vanessa's email. Wear county-style uniforms. Residents comply faster when they believe law enforcement is present. Who provided your instructions? Emily asked. Ms. Whitmore. Were you a sheriff's deputy? No. Had you ever been a sheriff's deputy? No. Yet you detained Miguel Alvarez? Yes. While armed and wearing a badge? Cody looked down. Yes. Then I testified. Brennan approached me aggressively. You were angry about the HOA's complaints, weren't you, Sheriff? I disagreed with them. You removed survey markers illegally placed on my property. You used your department to investigate a personal dispute. No. But your lieutenant investigated. After evidence indicated criminal conduct. Brennan walked closer. And conveniently, you personally arrived carrying Ms. Whitmore's warrant. I was responding to armed men detaining workers on my farm. So this became personal. I looked at Vanessa. It became criminal. Brennan stopped. Emily saved the strongest evidence for last. The courtroom lights dimmed. Our trail camera footage appeared. Vanessa's Mercedes. Cody's pickup. Daniel Cross, the false survey marker. Then Emily displayed Western Crest's development plan. The proposed access road cut directly through my north pasture. Finally came the ownership records. Vanessa Whitmore, managing member of the LLC investing in Western Crest. Several homeowners gasped. Emily turned toward the jury. The defendant told her neighbors this was about community safety. Then she displayed another recovered email. Once coal is removed, access construction can begin immediately. It was about money. Vanessa suddenly whispered something to Brennan. He shook his head. She whispered again, harder. Judge Holloway noticed. Ms. Whitmore, is there a problem? Vanessa stood. My attorney is refusing to present evidence. Brennan closed his eyes. Sit down. he whispered. No. The courtroom became completely still. Judge Holloway leaned forward. What evidence? Vanessa pointed toward me. He knew about the access plan before any of this happened. Emily immediately stood. Your Honor, the state would welcome clarification. Brennan looked horrified. Ms. Whitmore, do not answer that. Too late. Vanessa snapped. He was offered money. Emily froze, then slowly turned toward her. What offer? Vanessa realized what she had done. Rachel leaned toward me. Did she just open that door? I nodded. Because Vanessa had just mentioned an offer investigators knew existed, but had deliberately kept out of the trial. Judge Holloway sent the jury outside. 23 minutes later they returned. Closing arguments followed. Then the judge gave final instructions. The jury disappeared behind the deliberation room door. 3 hours passed. At 4:37 p.m., the bailiff entered. Everyone stood. The jury had reached a verdict. Vanessa gripped the edge of the defense table. The foreperson handed the verdict sheet to the clerk. Judge Holloway read it silently. Then she looked up. Will the defendant please rise? Vanessa stood slowly. Charles Brennan rose beside her. For the first time since I had met her, she didn't look angry. She looked afraid. The clerk faced the jury. On count 1, conspiracy to commit fraud. How do you find the defendant? The foreperson stood. Guilty. A quiet gasp moved through the courtroom. Count 2, forgery, guilty. Count 3, criminal impersonation through solicitation and coordination, guilty. Vanessa closed her eyes. Count 4, attempted unlawful dispossession, guilty. Count 5, conspiracy related to unlawful detention. The foreperson looked directly ahead. Guilty. 5 counts, 5 guilty verdicts. Rachel touched my arm. Breathe. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. Across the aisle, several Silver Creek homeowners stared at Vanessa in disbelief. One woman started crying. These were people Vanessa had repeatedly told that I was obstructing an emergency road because I considered myself above the law. Now, they knew the truth. Judge Holloway thanked the jury and dismissed them. Then Brennan stood. Your Honor, we request that Ms. Whitmore remain released pending sentencing. Special Prosecutor Emily Carter rose immediately. The state opposes. She listed the forged documents, the impersonation scheme, the unlawful detention of my employees, the attempt to seize property worth millions. Then she delivered the final point. The defendant continued this operation after learning law enforcement was investigating. Judge Holloway looked at Vanessa. Bond is revoked. Vanessa spun toward Brennan. What? 2 court officers approached. No, absolutely not. Ms. Whitmore, the judge warned. This entire case was built by him. She pointed at me. Judge Holloway's expression hardened. Sheriff Cole did not forge the documents. Vanessa went silent. He did not hire fake deputies. He did not falsify survey markers. And he did not conceal a financial interest in the property being targeted. The handcuffs closed around Vanessa's wrists. 6 weeks later, sentencing filled the courtroom again. Vanessa received a multi-year state prison sentence, followed by supervised release, restitution obligations, and substantial financial penalties. Daniel Cross lost his court position permanently and received a reduced sentence because of his cooperation. Cody Vance and Eric Dalton pleaded guilty to charges connected to impersonation and unlawful detention. Front Range Protective Services lost its state license, but the consequences didn't stop there. Western Crest's Phase 2 project collapsed. Its financing partners withdrew. The county rejected the access proposal. Then Silver Creek homeowners demanded an independent forensic audit of their HOA. That uncovered unauthorized legal payments and development-related expenses Vanessa had pushed through without proper disclosure. Within 3 months, the entire HOA board resigned. The homeowners elected replacements. Their first official action was simple. They withdrew every complaint against my farm. Their second was more personal. One Saturday morning, about 30 Silver Creek residents walked down my driveway. Miguel glanced at me. Should I call somebody? I smiled. Let's hear them out. A woman named Patricia Hayes stepped forward. She looked embarrassed. We owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. Yes, she said, we do. She explained that Vanessa had told residents I was trying to block emergency services. Some had believed her. Others had been afraid to question her. Patricia looked toward my north pasture. We should have asked more questions. I nodded. That would have helped. She laughed softly. Then she handed me a wooden sign. Miguel turned it around. Cole Family Farm. Private property since 1953. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. That evening, I mounted it beside the north gate. The sun was dropping behind the mountains when I finished. Rachel stood nearby. 24 pieces of evidence, she said. More by the time trial started. And one stubborn sheriff. I looked across the pasture. No, one stubborn farmer. Rachel smiled. For months, Vanessa had tried to make me choose between those two identities. Sheriff or landowner. Authority or victim. But she never understood the simplest part. The badge didn't make that farm mine. The deed did. And the badge didn't put Vanessa in handcuffs. The evidence did. A year later, the north pasture looks almost exactly the way it did before Vanessa Whitmore ever drove onto my property. The cattle still gather near the fence every morning. Miguel still complains whenever I insist on repairing equipment myself. And that wooden sign from the Silver Creek homeowners still hangs beside the gate. Cole Family Farm. Private property since 1953. Sometimes I stop and look at it longer than I need to. Not because we won, because of how close we came to losing something through paperwork, intimidation, and the appearance of authority. I spent most of my career wearing a badge. That experience taught me an important distinction. A uniform is not authority. A badge is not authority. An official-looking document is not automatically the truth. Real authority has rules. It leaves records. It can be verified. And anyone who tells you that you're not allowed to ask questions is giving you a very good reason to start asking them. Vanessa thought fear would make me surrender. She thought fake deputies, forged documents, manipulated property records and public accusations would overwhelm me before anyone examined the details. But details were exactly what destroyed her plan. 1. A misplaced survey marker. 2. A fake county seal. 3. An invalid case number. 4. Security footage. 5. Bank records. 6. Emails. And eventually, witnesses willing to tell the truth. Today, Silver Creek has a new HOA board. The development entrance remains exactly where it originally belonged, and my north pasture remains farmland. No access road. No construction crews. No orange property transfer markings. Just open ground my grandfather worked before I was born. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this. Never surrender your rights simply because the person threatening them sounds confident. Ask for documents. Verify signatures. Check records. Document everything. And when something doesn't make sense, keep looking. If you've ever dealt with an HOA, neighbor, developer, or anyone who tried to push you off property that legally belonged to you, share your experience in the comments. And tell me this, what would you have done the moment 6 fake deputies showed up at your gate? If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories about property rights, neighborhood conflicts, and the people who finally decided to fight back. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care of your neighbors, protect what you've worked for, and never confuse someone acting powerful with someone who actually has the law on their side.